Welcome to Heart of the Wild, the podcast where we explore the wonders of wildlife, the beauty of animal behavior, and the people devoted to protecting the planet's most extraordinary creatures. Today, this one is for the dog lovers, the dog owners, the aspiring dog owners. This one is for you all. So if you've ever looked at your dog and wondered, what are they thinking? Do they really love me? Are they having a bad day? And you wanted to know maybe the signs to look for, something to properly respond to. If you've ever felt like you could be a more trusting, connected dog owner, I think this is going to be something that you are really, really excited about. So we're thrilled to have an expert and renowned animal behaviorist today with us to help us what we're calling Speak Dog. So not only will she discuss the ways in which to communicate with your beloved four-legged friend, but this discussion will help build trust and emotional safety with your dog, understand the signals they're sending to us, and will also help improve the overall relationship that you have with your dog. And everyone here has heard me talk about Eloise, my dog, a million times, so I can't wait to talk to Louise Otter. So Louise is a highly sought-after behaviorist who owns the Surrey and South London Training and Behaviour. She previously worked at one of London's biggest rescues for 10 years. She has a bachelor's degree in animal behavior. She's volunteered in shelters working with dogs, cats, rabbits, and rodents. And she's also qualified in something called consensual husbandry, which I'm sure we're going to get into because she's already taught me so much about that. And she's helps dogs with stress-free vet visits and routine care. As I said, a whole other topic in itself. And as of 2025, Louise is also running workshops for animal professionals to help improve their training skills, working with other species outside of canines, namely chickens and alpacas right now, but has plans to expand for more. So with all that said, welcome, Louise.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. It's a big intro. It's a lot to live up. In a short podcast, I'm going to teach you everything about body language. I'm going to teach you how to read your dog and how to improve your relationship.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go.
No small task.
No.
We're up for the task. So let's talk about Speaking Dog. I'm going to kick it right off. Can you start by talking a little bit about some of the things we should look for, some of the sort of behavioral things to look for that our dogs might be doing that we can read, that we can find from them, that might help us connect with them a bit more?
Yeah, sure. So there's loads of signals. Dogs are constantly communicating with us. And I've taught this subject for a long time, both to pet owners and also dog professionals. And what I found is that there's a massive lack of knowledge in this department. And it makes a huge difference. If you know, then you know. And if you don't know, then you can always learn. So dogs will...
I thought you were going to say, then you don't know.
And you don't know.
You're screwed.
Well, I mean, most people bumble on through dog ownership without many issues, but the more you understand, the better relationships will become. So I found that most people don't know about these little micro signals that dogs give just to show that they're ever so slightly uncomfortable with something or maybe a little bit unhappy. Things like licking of the lips, putting the ears back, eyes widening. These are all really subtle bits of body language that dogs will give us because they're telling us all the time, but most people will miss them. So there's a lovely graphic that you can easily look up online called the ladder of aggression. And the ladder of aggression, I feel like we're really just diving straight into this, by the way.
I love
Let's go. So the ladder of aggression is something that all dogs will use. And the idea is at the very bottom of the ladder, a dog that's not even on the ladder is one that's super relaxed and chilled and fine. But just the first rung of that ladder, they may be showing some very, very low level stress signals. And that could be things like licking of the lips, turning the head away, avoiding eye contact, putting the ears back slightly, maybe lifting up a front paw. And these signals are often ones that people don't understand. As the dog goes up the ladder, they're getting more and more uncomfortable with whatever the situation is. And what we find is that most people understand growling and snapping and biting. That's the really obvious stuff. That's the top of the ladder. But lower down, the dogs are almost like whispering, oh, no, thanks, don't do that to me. Oh, I don't really like that. And if you can read those signals, what happens is you prevent the dog from having to escalate that behaviour. So instead of them saying, oh, growling and backing off, actually you can read that dog a bit earlier. You can see that they're uncomfortable because they're doing those other behaviours. And then you can de-escalate a situation very quickly, prevent them from escalating up that ladder to become more and more uncomfortable. And they don't always. They very often do things like licking the lips. It doesn't mean they're about to bite you, but it's just a way of them saying, I don't really like whatever's going on at that time. So the more you listen to them and respond accordingly, the better your relationship becomes. So like I always imagine living with somebody that hugs you constantly without your consent. Like, I would hate that. I think I might be that person, but we'll just ignore that.
I'm a hugger, but yes, I agree. I wouldn't love it if it was unwanted.
If it was unwarranted and unwanted and somebody just came up to you and hugged you every time they saw you, you'd get pretty, sometimes it'd be all right and sometimes you're like, no, seriously, get off, I don't like it. And if you said to that person, please, not now, and they ignored you and hugged you anyway, you'd feel a little bit of resentment towards them. You'd possibly see them and think, oh, God, this guy again.
I'm just thinking of my dog being like, God, this girl's back.
Oh, God, she's here again. What does she want this time? And I think dogs are incredibly tolerant, really, really tolerant. But if you were living with that hugger, there would be times when it'd be fine. There'd be times where you'd think, oh, God, not this again. And if they just ignored you and carried on, then you would feel a little bit reluctant to be as affectionate back, possibly at times. So I do see that with dogs, is they get a lot of attention forced upon them, often by people that don't know them as well. So people think, oh, dogs love to be stroked. That's one of the biggest misconceptions. Sure, they like affection on their terms. With certain people, maybe not everybody. Some dogs love everyone. Like my boxer would go up to absolutely anybody and take pats. She'd be really happy. And my Pomchi absolutely wouldn't. She'd be like, no, earn it first. You're not coming and touching me. Thank you. And then she's really specific. So she only likes being tickled under the chin. Most people go, I'm going to stroke your dog and I'm going to stroke them on top of the head. And dogs think, oh, geez, don't do that. And you see them like ducking, licking their lips, put their ears back. And again, majority of people will miss that. And they'll go, hello, nice to see you. And the dogs are like, get off. And I know they're going, get off, because I can read body language. But it's not too difficult to understand. Once you can pick up on these little signals, you can see, yeah, okay, that dog looks a bit uncomfortable, but they are tolerating this amount of handling and touch. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that gets missed with dog body language, is these really subtle bits of communication when they're going, oh, no, thank you. And people carry on touching, usually, regardless.
I think one of the biggest things you've taught me is even being aware of those signals. I don't think most people, and perhaps I'm overgeneralizing, but I don't think most people are even looking for the signals. They're just assuming that they understand dogs or their dog or their friend's dog. And they're not even looking for the signals. And then taking that a step further, if they are seeing signals, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about the dogs rolling over, for example, because that is one that I just always assumed meant one thing, and perhaps it means something else. And this is, again, from something that you taught me, because if anyone maybe didn't pick up on this, I worked with Louise for my dog Eloise when we moved over to England. She was exhibiting some fairly aggressive behaviors that she hadn't before, and it was really upsetting. But you taught me something like that might have been misinterpreted by me, where I had no idea. So I would love for you to talk about that, because that blew my mind. And I feel like people listening here are going to be like,
what's she talking
about? Am I misinterpreting this
Yeah.
particular behavior? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that is the one that everyone gets really hung up on whenever I teach body language, is when a dog rolls over, 9 times out of 10, they actually don't want a belly rub. So it's very different if you're sitting at home with Eloise on the sofa and she's super chilled and super relaxed, and she just kind of goes, oh, and just sort of rolls on her back a little bit, just sort of slowly, legs wide, nice and relaxed. She probably does want a little tickle, and you can test it. You can go, do you want a little tickle on the chest for a few seconds, and then stop and see what she does. That's generally a good rule with handling, which I'll go into more in a bit. But with rolling over, if your dog's sort of really casually already lying next to you and they just sort of expose a bit of tummy, a little 3-second tickle, see what they do, they might roll into you a bit more, then sure, they probably do want a bit of affection. But the majority of times, what I find is that it can be a behaviour called a tap out, which is where the dog is actually asking for space, the complete opposite of what most people then go on to do. So you'll see it in puppies, you'll see it in older dogs. I do a lot of puppy training classes and I see this a lot, and it's one of the things that always upsets people, and I don't think they believe me. I'm like, oh, I'm doing this
I was kind of like,
really long time.
She wants a belly rub, obviously.
Yeah, everyone's like, no, that doesn't apply to my dog. My dog loves a belly rub. I'm like, okay, but when you stroke them, do they roll over? When they see you coming, do they roll over in anticipation? Because there are a couple of times where dogs will do it. If you stroke them and they roll over, then that is most likely, again, 9 times out of 10, not all of the time, that is most likely they're saying, this is a bit much for me right now, and they're asking for space. So they're exposing their tummy, they're rolling over. It can be very difficult to read that because the rest of the body can be quite wiggly. So they can have a bit of a wiggly, waggly tail. Their ears can be back. It'll often be accompanied with a bit of a lip lick as well. So when their tongue flicks out over their nose, that's a sign of I'm not too comfortable. So you'll see that with a belly exposed. And unfortunately, what most people do is the opposite of what the dog's asking for. So you touch the dog, they roll on their back. What they're saying is, give me space. What they get is the complete opposite. So people then go, bellies, and they go in for a big old belly rub and they go, oh, they love it so much. And again, the majority of the time, that'll be fine. But really what the dog's saying is, I would really like some space, please. And they get the opposite. And I think they're such a tolerant species. And obviously they've been domesticated and they've been bred to work with people. And for the most part, they're really tolerant. But sometimes when dogs have got other things going on as well, or if they're having a bit of a bad day or a bad week, that tolerance will decrease significantly. And then you'll end up with a dog that's really telling you to go away. With puppies, I see it a lot, rolling over and people doing belly rubs. And my question to them is often, or to the owners is, you stroke your puppy and they roll over and then you rub their belly. They then start biting your hands, don't they? And I see them go, yeah, they do. They do start biting. I'm like, yes, because they've already asked you for space by rolling on their backs. You've done the opposite. You've gone in for bellies, belly, 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 belly. And the puppy's gone, Jesus, this is too much. And then they are really making it clear by putting those needle-sharp puppy teeth on your hand, saying, no, I've asked you to leave me alone. That might start with a lick and then it ends with quite hard biting. And then people take their hands away. So they've gone up that ladder of aggression. They started at the bottom. They said, all right, I need a bit of space, please. They probably did a bit of lip licking and ears pulled back. They might have tried moving away or looking away. Then they've tipped over onto their back, done a tap out. People have rubbed their bellies, done the opposite of what that puppy's asking for. Rub their belly. Puppies then start licking and then biting the hands, and then people take their hands away. Because finally, what the dog has wanted, which was space, has been achieved. So that puppy has learned your early signals get ignored. But if they escalate their behaviour going up that ladder of aggression, they find the point where it works and then they can stop there.
Will they as the dog, start looking to that higher ladder of aggression earlier, knowing that they're getting results sooner from that, or knowing that they're getting results from that type of behavior? Because
if your whispers don't get listened to, you have to shout. And that's the same, go back to that hugger example. You live with a hugger, you're going to get to the point where they come into the room and you just go, nope, don't come near me. I don't want to be hugged today. And that will hopefully work. So dogs, yes, if the lower rung behaviours on those ladder of aggression, if that doesn't get listened to, they have no choice but to escalate.
I'm sure everyone listens and thinks about their own scenarios and their own dogs and their own, actions with their pets. So I'm thinking of the ways that I might have ignored signals. Eloise is 10. So I think, first of all, number one, in what ways can looking at these signals, I think it's quite clear, but spelling it out, what ways can you improve the relationships with your pets, your dogs, your cats, by looking at these signals and really being an expert in your own, in your own animal? How can this help build trust, and how can this help in that relationship? And B, if you have an older pet or maybe, middle-aged pet, are there ways that you can work to rebuild that trust if you haven't been listening to these signals over time?
Yeah, definitely. So you can absolutely start listening to your dog at any stage. Obviously, the earlier the better, because then you've got more of their lifetime to have understood what they're communicating. But you can do little consent tests. So ask them, do they want to be stroked? So encourage them to come to you. Give them a little tickle somewhere they're likely to enjoy. So typically dogs don't like being stroked on the top of the head, around the ears, or on the tail or the legs. I tend to stroke dogs down the side or under the chin or on the chest. So give them a little tickle under the chin or on the chest just for a few seconds, and then take your hand away.
Is that what you mean by ask? You're
asking. Well, you're invited. Do you want to stroke?
You're asking them in their language.
Yeah, but also I do say, do you want a tickle? I say that in English out loud. Do you want a tickle? Come over to me. If they come straight up, I'll touch them, but I will pause after a few seconds. Okay. And I will constantly do that. I've got into the habit of doing it after working with rescue dogs for years and working with dogs for years and years and years. You get into the habit of building good relationships with them. So I'll say, hey, how you doing? If they come straight over, I go tickle, tickle, tickle. No, I mean, I don't say that, but I'm
I would.
Yeah, you can. It's fine. Do you want a little tickle? And then you pause, and then you watch the dog and see what they do. If whilst you're doing your 3-4 seconds of tickling, they start licking their lips and putting their ears back and stiffening up, then chances are they're not having a great time. So you might stop a bit earlier. But if they seem to be enjoying it and you stop, they'll let you know if they want a bit more. They'll nuzzle in for a bit more. They'll hit your hand. They'll rub against you. Or they might just stay still and just look at you like, carry on. Why have you stopped? I would go through the same process every time. Few seconds and stop. Few seconds and stop. Because as a species, humans really like stroking dogs. Way more than dogs like being stroked, in my opinion. I think that we love petting dogs. It's really good. It lowers our heart rate, our blood pressure, everything. But I don't know if it has the same effect for dogs necessarily.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So when you're doing, it's interesting because when you're stroking a dog and the dog is reacting, I think one of the things that I've read and learned about is sort of like the love between a dog and an owner. So I guess what I'd love to talk about and kind of move into is love and if a dog really loves you. So there's research that has said that humans and dogs both release oxytocin when we're petting them, which I don't know if maybe that's something that you've heard the dog doesn't feel as high of. And for me, I feel like that if you want to read into it, right, it tells me that a dog really does love you back. You love your dog so much. And I've also read that I think it's called storge, which is that dogs display love as familial love versus romantic love. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want my dog to romantically love me anyway. That's weird. But it's more they don't have that type of love anyway. But that's the kind of love that they exhibit to other pack members or the family members in their home types of things. Anyway, all that's to be said. I'm curious if you do believe in your work, and you're an expert in this, if they do love us. And it sounds like the oxytocin levels in petting them might not attribute to that more loving relationship. But I think that concept really hits home for so many people, and you want that love in return from your pet. So I think that's such an interesting concept.
I think the scientific studies around oxytocin release, the ones that I'm aware of, there's the one where they scan the dog's brains to see what's being released at the time, and in the presence of the scent of their owner. So I don't know about the touching thing. I think for humans, for sure. I'm not sure it's both sides, but I mean, I'm willing to do some more reading and have a look. But certainly when dogs were presented with the scent of their owner, then the oxytocin was released. And there was another study where they gazed into each other's eyes, which is a strange concept because actually dogs can find eye contact quite threatening. But with a familiar person, soft eyes, relaxed body language, that also releases oxytocin for both. For me, though, for does your dog love you, I think that we can look at the behaviour. So aside from the chemical releases, we can look at the behaviour of the dog. How do they greet you? When I get home, I've got 5 dogs. It is slightly chaotic when I get home because they're like, yes, mum's home. And then I get sort of smashed into, and then Ripley, my Doberman, will go and grab a shoe and parade that around the house. body language that I see in happy greeting behaviour, and you see this in wild dog groups as well, and greeting behaviour across loads of canids, where they put their ears back and they're wiggly and their tails are going, and they're just, you might get little tappy happy feet, and sometimes they want to occupy their mouth, so I think that's why my Doberman goes and picks up a shoe. She just looks for something. She'll grab a shoe. I constantly cannot find a pair of shoes in my house. I can find one shoe and then have to go and try and find the other one because she's picked it up and paraded it and dumped it somewhere else. But they like to occupy their mouths when they get excited. They might jump up a little bit, which is something that a lot of people don't necessarily want in their pet dogs, but it's perfectly normal behaviour, and it's usually really pleased to see you when paired with all those other bits of body language, sort of soft mouths. My dogs often like pant a little bit when I get home. They're like, yeah, they're just sort of giddy with excitement. And I think that shows love. When I worked in rescue, I was thinking about this earlier on when I knew that we were going to be talking about this subject. When I worked in rescue, we had a lot of, so we'd taken stray dogs, so dogs that had been lost or had been found by somebody and handed in. And then when we would reunite them with their owners, the dogs were always happy to see their owners. Even if we thought this is a shady character, this dog might have had not the best life with this person, the dog was still always really excited to see them, which was kind of heartbreaking.
I know, I'm thinking like...
lovely all at once, because... Well, not really lovely, I guess. It was just a bit heartbreaking sometimes because you think this guy's not been nice to you. We can tell that from how you behave with strangers or how you behave if somebody lifts their hand up or something like that. And then they'd see their owner and they'd ears back wiggly, still that greeting familiarity. So
I just think it shows how incredible dogs are, which is why we're so fascinated with them, why we're so in love with them. The loyalty behind, really, the loyalty is the key thing behind a dog. But your point is so good. You know, there's all this scientific research that kind of backs up the fact that dogs do love us, I think. I'm also very hopeful that they do anyway, because I just adore my dog so much. But the behavioral side is also indicative of the fact that they do. And I am biased. I really just hope that is the case.
Yeah, because we're a needy species.
I'm needy. I need my dog to love me.
Yeah.
Please love me.
Yeah.
But I also really believe that there's just so much other indicators that back that up, which makes me really happy. And at the end of the day, like, those are very, very important elements to this.
They're a really highly social species. So that's why we have dogs with issues being left on their own, and when certain people go away or if an owner dies, then they can grieve in the same way. They can get upset when they're not with their group. So I think that they love being with their families and their people.
I think to that point, I wonder, how can you tell? So you've given some indicators of how you know a dog is happy with, you know, a soft mouth and ears back and the tail wagging. How can you tell if a dog is unhappy? Like, what behavioral patterns could you look for if a dog is unhappy? So I think this would be really key for listeners if you are, you know, maybe a new dog owner that has adopted a dog and you're working on behavioral changes, if that dog might be unhappy and seeing that shift. Or if you do have a dog that is older and you're shifting behavioral patterns, maybe the dog sometimes can be lonely or things like that.
So how to tell if they're unhappy? Well, body language is very complicated. So when I was talking earlier about greeting behaviour and ears going back can also be a sign that a dog is unhappy, uncomfortable. With body language in general, you want to look at the whole dog. You can't just isolate one part and go, well, its tail's wagging or its ears are back or its eyes are wide or it's doing X, Y, and Z. You need to look at the whole picture. It's really dangerous, actually, if you just focus in on one part, because it gives you a false representation of how that dog is feeling. So you have to look at the entire body and look at the context of that body language. So you might see a wagging tail, for example, but that could be accompanied with a stiff posture, teeth being bared, and the dog could be about to bite you, because wagging tails can be a number of different things. And I would never just look at a tail of a dog to see how that dog was feeling. You've got to look at everything. Facially, they give away an awful lot. That then isn't necessarily helped by the breeds. So you'll get some dogs which are really easy to read because they've got like a regular dog-shaped face. Like think of like a Labrador, like your classic family, or thought of as a classic family pet. They're relatively easy to read because they've got a long muzzle. They've got short hair. So you can see if they scrunch their face up or if they have tension between their forehead or around the muscle tension. I mean, once you know what you're looking at, you can see it. But if you've got like a poodle mix or a French bulldog or these dogs that are really becoming popular now, you can't see that as easily. So Eloise's poodle, is she full poodle or poodle mix?
She's a toy poodle Maltese mix.
Yeah, that's what I thought she was. Part poodle at least.
Poodle mix, yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. She's
got fluffy, like curly coat. So a little bit more difficult to read because you can't see the wrinkles in the face. And they're still there. If she's unhappy about something, they're still there.
She often can be. She's
unhappy.
I don't think she's unhappy. I think she's sassy. Very sassy. Yeah, I don't know how she could be unhappy. She's like...
No, that dog is not unhappy.
She's fine. I just think anyone who knows me and knows Eloise is probably like laughing at this conversation because they're just like, oh my God.
No, she wants for nothing. She's fine.
But she's fine. Like just so sassy.
But then that's a dog that's not unhappy. Sassy, I think, is used to getting things when she wants them. And there is nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So going back to your question of how do you tell when a dog's unhappy? Well, it might be a decrease in play. Maybe they're not as interested going for walks. Maybe their appetites. I mean, all of these things often just lead to pain. And that's a massive topic in behaviour, is often when you see a dog that's seemingly unhappy, it's actually that they're they're just often physically uncomfortable. And interestingly, most owners seem really sceptical about that. When they come to me with a behaviour problem and I go, oh, have you considered maybe your dog actually might be uncomfortable physically somehow? They go, oh no, they're fine. And they just dismiss it really quickly. I'm like,
why do you think that is?
I think because people don't know how pain presents itself behaviourally. So a dog being a little bit cranky about being touched in a certain place, that's fairly obvious. Maybe they don't like being touched on their hips because they've got hip pain. But also, maybe they're fine with owners touching their hips, or maybe they think they're fine because they're not aware of the body language that would indicate that perhaps they're not. But maybe they're not that great with other dogs. So young dogs or big bouncy dogs coming near them, they're instantly defensive. Or maybe that's because they've got a dodgy knee or a dodgy hip and they don't want to be smashed into, or they're a bit of spine pain. And I present that argument to owners, or suggestion to owners, that maybe your dog's actually a bit uncomfortable here physically. And they immediately go, oh no, they still run after a ball. They still play. And dogs will still do those things. They will still run, they will still play, they will still eat. They will seem in every other way fairly normal if they're uncomfortable physically. But then there'll be little behavioural signs that they're not actually that great. And it might be an increased sensitivity to sounds, reluctance to walk on certain surfaces, stopping on walks, like I said, intolerance of other dogs coming too close or people, or being a bit grouchy if they're resting in the evenings. Inflammation is often worse in the evenings. So if a dog's lying down on the sofa and then somebody sits down next to them, that can cause an overreaction because they've weight shifted where the sofa's moved. And then they go, get away from me. And then people go, oh God, we've got to get the dog off the sofa because this is an issue. But actually, they're more likely they've got some physical discomfort.
And I wonder if this is something that you would see more as a dog aged. A lot of these ailments that you're talking about, I feel like, again, you tell me, but this could be something that would present itself as a dog ages. You know, you get the joint pain, you get the hip pain, or potential for knee issues and things like that. Is that something are these exhibited behaviors that you might see as your dog ages as well, and something to look out for dog owners?
Yeah, so things get worse typically as they age, but you can get very young dogs with things like hip dysplasia and cruciate problems and spinal problems. And there's loads of stuff that young dogs, that people think, oh, well, they're not going to have arthritis because they're they're not old, or they're not going to have hip dysplasia because they're not old, but that's not the case. So those conditions will become more prevalent as they age, but it shouldn't be ruled out in young dogs. So that's a reason why your dog might be unhappy, is actually they might just be physically uncomfortable. My Doberman has, she's nearly 10, she'll be 10 at the end of this month, and she had a cruciate repair a few years ago. And the only sign I got that she was uncomfortable, she started to sit a little bit wonkily. So I always teach dogs to sit straight. So knees straight, knees bent, feet flat to the floor. Good posture, like, you're sitting up immediately.
Oh,
like, we've got to
God, my posture's not good right now.
Shoulders back, chest out.
Yep.
So teaching a dog to sort of sit correctly or sit well, and knowing what that looks like in different breeds, then can be a really good indicator. So she started to sit with her foot just slightly poking out. And she started to get a little bit cranky with my other dogs, especially when she was resting in the evenings. She would just sort of get a bit teeth display if they came near her while she was resting. And I thought, something's going on. I took her to the vet. They couldn't really find anything initially. And then I've got a friend who's a very good osteopath for animals and for people. And she treated her and she said, there's something going on with her knee or her hip. Pretty sure it's the knee. Get her back to the vets, get her looked at. And she'd ruptured her cruciate ligament. But she was running and playing and jumping and eating and seemingly fine otherwise. So once we'd found the cause of the issue, fixed it, her behaviour improved.
It's just wild to me, because the number of people who don't know these things to look out for in their dogs, that wouldn't know to look for like a slight difference in how they're sitting, or might not be so attuned to their animal in these ways. I mean, that your little Doberman might have been walking around with that issue for such a long time, for potentially the whole rest of his life. Yeah. So that is just wild to me.
Yeah, which is why it's really important to listen to your pet professionals when they say, oh, okay, well, if your dog's displaying this behaviour, maybe they're uncomfortable. It's always good to go to the vet to have a thorough check over if you're having any kind of behavioural problems with your dog. You'll need to be quite specific with them. So you need to say, make sure they know we're having behavioural issues. Can we check for pain? And they should do a full orthopaedic check. So they should be poking and prodding and moving the dog around to the joints and watching how they walk and seeing as much as they can. If you go for your yearly checkup at the vets and they just sort of check for lumps and bumps and anything obvious, things will often get missed in that regular checkup. So people will come to me, they say, we're having this problem. I say, I think let's go back to the vet. And they go, they've just had it because they just had their vaccination. They said they're fine. I'm like, but actually we are looking for signs of discomfort, which might be leading to behavioural problems. So it needs to be a much more thorough examination, and maybe blood tests, maybe x-rays. There's all sorts of things that need to be looked into to make the dog more comfortable and then make them happier.
Okay. And I think the biggest takeaway from this is that dog owners need to be educated and aware of dog behavior. It's not something that is just a given when you get a dog. It's not something that I was readily taught when I got my dog. And I actually think one of the things that I did do was a training class, like a basic training class, to teach the dog how to sit and how to, come when they're called and things like that. But none of that included behavioral elements or understanding those sort of nuances that you're talking about. So listeners empowering themselves, dog owners, or, as I said, aspiring owners, I think just understanding that you can empower yourself, and that just creates such a stronger relationship, and even, changing the trajectory of the health of your dog can respond and be a next step from all of this kind of education and understanding. It really is that powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And not every dog owner needs to be an expert in dogs. Like, we've had dogs for thousands of years. Mm-hmm. I mean, not us personally, obviously, but as a species, we've had dogs for a really, really long time, and we've bumbled through. But there's a lovely phrase I often think of, which is, you only know what you know until you know better. And I think that's such a really good thing to live by, because the more you can understand, the better you can make your dog's life, because you can understand them better, you can make changes where you need to, and you just have a better relationship with them. So if it's a good time to come on to it now, but the consensual handling is a big topic in animal care at the moment. So zoos, aquariums, and domestic animals, and dogs being my speciality, we want to teach people to be able to understand these signals with body language, and then we can use it for cooperative care. So that means getting your dog more relaxed for grooming, for vet visits, for routine topical treatments, or cutting their claws, or giving them ear drops, eye drops. You don't have to restrain them to do that. In fact, that's the opposite of what we try to teach with this course, is actually these courses, is you can actually just teach your dog to stand still and to let you know when they've had enough or when they'd like you to continue. You let them opt in. And when you do, it's really powerful. So one of my dogs used to avoid the vet when I took her to the vets for her vaccination. I just noticed it one year. I took her in for a vaccination. As the vet came towards her, she just put her ears back, her eyes widened a little bit, and she just leant away from them. And all I did at that point, because we were in the moment, needed to get done, I just held her collar, which was enough, and then they injected her. And I went away from that visit and I thought, she wasn't thrilled about that.
That's actually so calm compared to what
Yeah, I mean, that's really not too bad.
Loses it, bites, and I mean that she has.
We need to do some work with her then.
What you're talking about sounds like incredible. The consensual husbandry.
And look, it doesn't.
Groundbreaking.
We're not going to get to the stage with every single dog. So Eloise isn't going to get to the stage where she's going to be able to be completely chilled and relaxed with somebody poking a needle in her. But if we can reduce the stress, then that's a win.
Amazing. She also, I know you know this, she has epilepsy. So for a dog with any kind of neurological issue or underlying health issue as well, to reduce that stress is another reason why it would be so massive, as you say, as well.
Yeah, it's huge to give dogs less stress in something, that typically is really, really stressful. Going to the vets, for a lot of dogs, they'll either be terrified and not want to go in, or they'll be over the top, frantically, sort of like really, really excited. And people go, oh, they love the vets. But what they're seeing is like this dog going, whoa, it's a bit overwhelming, so I'm going to jump on everyone and wriggle around the room and roll on my back and then up again and then wee somewhere. And so the consensual husbandry is all about teaching dogs that they can take part and they will get paid, or they can opt out and we'll leave them alone. And that sounds like, well, obviously they'd opt out and we'd leave them alone, but they actually don't. When you give them a bit of a choice and you start off small. So Ripley, the dog that leant away from the vet, I taught her a chin rest. So she'll rest her chin in my hand or on a table. She'll actually do it on anything now because we've done so much on her. Like, I could tap on this table and say to her chin, and she would just, because she's tall, she would reach it. She would just do that. She'd just rest her chin on the table. And we've taught her to do that. And then we've proofed it. So can you do that and hold it there? Can you now do that behaviour? And I touch you on the back of the neck. And if at any point she wants me to stop, she just lifts her chin up. And I go, okay, cool, we'll stop. But if she keeps her chin down and I do a little touch, then she gets a snack. So it's worth it for her to take part. And with time and practice, what we've built up to is that she will do a chin rest in my hand or on my lap or on the vet's table while she's injected. And she's not thrilled about it. There are still behavioural signs. Ears go back and her eyes go a bit wide. So she's not going, I love getting injected. This is brilliant.
Fair.
She's going, this is fine. Don't love it. Hurry up with the squeezy cheese. But I'm allowing it. I don't restrain my dogs for vaccinations now.
I think that's groundbreaking. I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
Louise, we're at time.
Already? Oh my God, that went so fast.
So much to talk about. I absolutely love it. One of the last questions I wanted to ask you was what you're most excited about around the advances in behavior. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the consensual husbandry, I think, sounds like it could be it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so dogs, it's been around for a while. Zoo animals, it's been around for... zoo animals are incredible. Zookeepers and zoo trainers are incredible because they've been doing this for a long time. Because for zoo animals, enrichment is super important. and you have to justify every bit of training that you do with a zoo animal. So I did a course with the brilliant Joe Mason a couple of years ago at Paynton Zoo, and we worked on teaching the giraffes to lift their feet and put their feet on a block so that we could treat their feet. So they need hoof care like horses. They need fairly regular hoof care. So instead of having to try and pick up this gigantic animal's hoof, you just teach them, hey, can you put your foot on that block? And we're going to do some stuff and you'll get some snacks. And it's worked. It's worked brilliantly. And so the zoo, and I say that to people, like we've done training where we've got tigers to jump up and lie down and have their tails brought out for blood draws. And the stuff that zookeepers do is sensational. And if people can do that with a tiger or a giraffe, why can't you do it with your cockapoo? You know?
Right, yeah.
No, it's not. We can make it work.
It's transferable.
Yeah, these are skills that we can transfer. So there's all sorts of things in the animal world, and dogs are my bread and butter. Dogs will always be, mostly because there's not really that much money in anything else. Dogs is where the market is for work. But my eye is drawn to other species more now. So doing workshops with trainers, but we're also going to be doing a course really soon with alpacas, teaching alpaca owners to use consensual husbandry with them, because that's a species that are typically shearing day for alpacas is pretty stressful. They sort of tie them and lie them on the side and they shear them and they don't like it. So, yeah, it doesn't sound great. And even things like putting head collars on them, it's usually done by just putting it on. Same with most dogs. They just put it on and then crack on with it. But you see the alpacas and dogs as well trying to avoid. They see it coming, they go, oh, no thanks. And they try and avoid. We did a course a couple of months ago, and we've got another one coming up in April this year of teaching them to put their own head collars on, essentially, as much as possible. So come and stand with me, stick your nose through that gap, get some sweeties, happy days. So there are ways of taking these consensual husbandry skills and then applying it to all different species, just to try, because it makes such a big difference to that animal's life.
And one thing that I mean, this is something that has been also transferable to so many conversations that we've had, whereby every animal life matters so much. Like we talk about broad species, we talk about canines and alpacas and, you know, them as a whole. But I think to someone like you and me who cares so much about animals, it's like every single animal's experience matters so much. So to be able to have your Doberman have a good experience at the vet, or one alpaca have a better experience getting sheared, is massive, you know.
To that animal, it's everything, isn't it?
Yeah. That's really wonderful. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna do our final segment, which is my favorite. I'm gonna try to stump you. I already gave a clue that this was not a dog noise because that just would have been too obvious, you know? So for anyone that's listened before, our last segment of every episode, we try to stump our guest and have them guess an animal noise. And so, Louise,
okay,
we're doing this.
Okay, sure.
Here we go.
How many guesses do I get?
However many you want. There's no really strong rules
until next year.
Yeah, that's okay. Here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
It's not hurt, by the way.
It sounds interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds most like a fox out of noises that I've heard, but I would say it's not a fox because it didn't sound screamy enough. I would say, I think I should maybe stop on fox. Oh, it is a fox?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was so impressed. I mean, I basically was like, no, don't keep going.
It is a fox. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
re-record that and I'll just say it's definitely a fox.
You got it.
Yeah, okay.
I was very excited.
Well, we actually foster foxes.
Do you?
Yes, every year
I love that.
for the Fox Project, we have abandoned cubs come in. We have a pen in our garden, and they come and we have them on foster until they're ready to be released back into the wild.
I love that. And actually, there's a fox on my street. If you don't live in London, this will sound insane. And if you do live in London, you'll be like, that makes sense. this fox is on our street, I love it. And it's always just walking by me when I'm walking home from work or whenever. And it's starting to get used to me where I think it's going to come up to me. Like I keep putting my hand out and being like, hey, buddy. And it's very skittish of people. But I think we have a bond. And I think it's about to like, he's like getting within inches of me now.
He's going to move in with you.
Yeah. I mean, he's welcome. Maybe not in my house.
You would have some instant regret because they smell so bad.
Yeah. I'm thinking like just my garden. But
yeah.
But he's, it's okay. They do make insane noises, especially in like the winter months. Those screaming sounds are...
The mating season's the worst. So then I always get people come to me with their dogs saying the dog's going absolutely wild in the garden because we have foxes. I'm like, yes, you and every other dog owner in London that has a garden, there are foxes and you can't do anything about them. And it's really, really hard to teach the dogs not to react to it. She's like, yeah, fair point. You have got something to bark at. There are foxes there. But during mating season, they are awful.
Insane.
Yeah, it's a horrible
They sound like
noise.
they're getting murdered. It's not.
It doesn't sound like consensual sex.
No, it's not. It sounds horrendous.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much, Louise, for being here. That was so informative, exciting for the future of animal behavior, consensual husbandry, as you said. But for any dog owners out there, hopefully you found this super helpful for creating a better, more trusted relationship with your own animal. And we hope to have you back for more because I just feel like we scratched the surface on this. But as always, for everyone listening, please let the heart of the wild inspire not just awe, but action. And we will give more information about Louise in the show notes. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And we will see you very soon for another episode. We hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye.